Adobe Color is a free web service that anyone can use. So anyone can open up a web browser window, navigate to color.adobe.com, and then start playing around with all these cool looking tools for creating color themes. Now, for creating color themes, you have no limitations whatsoever, but it's only when you hit the save button, Adobe Color is going to ask you to log in. Of course, if you want to save certain data into a cloud service, then you need to have an account where you want to save that data in. So what we can do here is either log in with an existing Adobe Creative Cloud membership of some sorts, for example, a full Creative Cloud membership, or maybe just a Photoshop license. It depends on what you're using. But if you don't even have that, then you can just click the create an account option, and then a Creative Cloud membership, then all the colors that you save now will also automatically appear within all of your design applications, like Adobe Photoshop or InDesign, or mobile apps like Fresco or Capture, or even Adobe XD. Now, this will appear inside of your software using something called an Adobe Creative Cloud library. And the cool thing about the libraries is that you can manage them and you can share them online with your coworkers or your friends or your boss or other people that you might be working with, maybe your. Now it's time to create our very first color theme. Now let me go over the main options available to you to create that theme yourself. Now, here on the left-hand side, I have something called the color harmony rules. Now, I'm not going to cover these rules in this specific video, but we'll get to those very, very quickly. Now, of course, the main thing here in the center of the screen is the color wheel. And the color wheel represents the entire color spectrum available to me in the current color mode that is selected here at the bottom left of the corner. Now, if I switch this from RGB to say CMYK, it will switch to CMYK values. I can do the exact same thing here and choose something like HSV, which stands for hue, saturation, and value, which in practice is basically something like brightness or lightness. And then the last one we have is LAB colors. Now, when you take a look at both RGB and CMYK values, if you want to make this very technical, then I should tell you that RGB and CMYK are what we call device-dependent color spaces, which means that these are always dependent on a certain output device, RGB. While you're building your color theme, Adobe Color offers you something called color harmony rules. Now, color rules are mathematical adjustments which will move the colors on the color. While you're building your color theme, Adobe Color offers you something called color harmony rules. Now, color rules are mathematical adjustments which will move the colors on the color wheel in such a way that a certain relationship or a harmony is achieved. And this harmony is always based on something called the base color. Now, here on my screen, you can see that color swatch B has this white triangle here at the bottom, and this means that this color has now been assigned the base color. So if I click the color D swatch and I click that white icon here at the bottom, now D is set as the base color. And if you pay close attention, you can see that that base color icon is actually visible within the color wheel itself as well. Now, I have switched my color mode to HSV. So again, the hue, which moves from 0 to 360 degrees counterclockwise across this color wheel. I have my saturation, which is the amount of color I have, or in other words, how much white I have added to that color. And I have V for value, which is the lightness or brightness, which represents the amount of black that I have added to that one specific color. Now, let's take a look at a few basic examples of how we can use the color harmony rules to achieve a few really good looking color themes here. Now, at this stage, this is set as custom, which means that I can just come in and just drag any of these colors across the color wheel independently from one another. But look what happens. Remember that D is now set as the base color. If I click the first harmony rule called analogous, you will see that all other colors will move together with that D base color. So they're basically linked together now based on the input of color D. So if I move that color swatch across the color wheel, you can see that all other color swatches are moving together in unison. Now, analogous themes use colors that are adjacent to one another on the color wheel. And this achieves a very pleasant visual effect where you have colors that blend really, really well together, which is something that you can use in any type of illustration or maybe your logo. And this will allow you to automatically create something that is really good looking on the eyes or easy looking on the eyes. And that's going to help you in your design process. So this is the first one. It's a basic analogous. Now, let's move on to the next one. The next one here is monochromatic. Now, there's something really important to understand when it comes to monochromatic, and that is when you take a look at the color values at the bottom, H, S, and V, you can see that I have different values for V, I have different values for S, but I have the same value for H. So all of these colors have the same hue, which is one of the characteristics of a monochromatic harmony rule. So only the saturation and the brightness changes. So if I were to just click the D color and move that one hue here, you can see that all other colors will change as well, but the hue will always remain the same. Same thing here, I might have a different saturation and a different value, but the hue will always remain the same, which gives you this effect. Now, linked to the monochromatic, or just very similar to monochromatic, is something called shades. So shades basically does something similar, but the main difference here is that in this scenario, it's not just the hue that is linked together, because as you can see, I clearly have the same value, but also the saturation. So 2 out of 3 values are now linked together and will always be the same. So if I were to come in and now make a change, let's say I'm gonna go for blue, and if I make a change here to the saturation, you can see that I'm actually moving the same saturation slider for all 5 of these color swatches. Again, giving me a theme that is visually very, very similar. Now that we know how the basic color harmony rules work, let's take a look at a few more advanced color harmony rules here inside of Adobe Color. Now, let me choose Triad to get started. Now, Triad is going to split my 5 color swatches up into 3 separate groups. Now, you can see that my base color is currently D, which is over here. Keep the same distance from what is square, which does the exact same thing. But instead of dividing by your 5 swatches by 3, they will be divided by 4. So in this scenario, I have 4 different groups of swatches, one here, one there, and now 2 swatches over here. And just like before, the exact same rules apply, which means that these 2 swatches here, they have the exact same hue value, which is 190 in this case, of the color wheel. And again, it will retain complementary. Now, complementary will try and find the exact opposite of the base color. So here in the scenario, you can see that it will start looking for a color directly on the opposite side of the color wheel. And again, it will retain that harmony the moment you start moving these rules around, or when you start moving these colors around. Now, the complementary option basically also shares the same hue values. I have 2 colors here on the left. I have 3 colors on the right. The 3 colors I have here, which are these pink ones, all have the same hue value, and the 2 green colors also have the same value. Now, in this scenario, there's one little thing that kind of bugs me, and that is the fact that I clearly have 3 colors as one group, I have 2 colors as one group, but they seem, split up here when I take a look at colors A through E. So what I can do is I can just quickly come in and drag this color and move it here to exchange their location. So now I have a better way of managing my color theme, and this is a far easier representation for me with these individual color swatches to manage my colors. Now, based on complementary, we have 2 different versions. The first one is split complementary. Now, split complementary is basically a combination of complementary, as in we have the base color and we have on the direct opposite side of that base color other colors. But this is basically a combination of complementary and something similar like Triad. But instead of dividing the remaining swatches by 3, they get divided by 2. And they will keep the same distance from one another, and they will move from that direct opposite side of the color wheel partially counterclockwise and clockwise to give you this result. So in this scenario, as you can see, I have a hue of 89 and 89, and a hue of 163, 163, and again, all these colors will move together. If I choose double split complementary, I get the exact same thing. So if I just quickly just move this horizontally, just to kind of give you an idea here, imagine there's a line that will divide this color wheel in 2. Then I have my base color here, and on the direct opposite side, there will be a color here. But again, this has been split up using the exact same distance from one another from that virtual point, as a matter of speaking. So this is going to move counterclockwise and clockwise just to give me these separate colors here. And again, this is something that you might want to use. I personally don't really use this one that often, but again, it's just one of the color harmony rules that you have here in the list. And the last one is called compound. Now, compound also gives you a pretty nice looking effect. And this is basically a mix of the complementary colors and analogous colors. So again, if I were to move this around, you can see that this is the effect that I currently have. So these colors I have on the right-hand side are the direct opposite of the colors on the left-hand side, but these 2 separate groups here have the analogous rule applied, which means that these colors basically moved a certain amount of degrees across the color wheel in both a clockwise and counterclockwise fashion, just to give me this visual effect here. So with that, I gave you an overview of the basic color harmony rules, so I'm hoping that you'll be able to use these in your everyday projects.